The purpose of this video is an attempt to debunk my own theories by using any in-game story points or lore that may conflict with that theory. If you want the short version, I failed to outright debunk my theories and speculations. Instead, I ended up highlighting the obvious while giving my own in-depth perspective. The reason why my theory is still rational is because of the gaps in between what is known and unknown. This is due to how I make use of those gaps, so everything is used within reason. And at the end, if you're interested, I will explain the process of how my theory came to be, and how it grew. I will now begin to highlight any flaws or gaps, but I will also defend my theories with in-game proof. Starting off with the Battle Pass cutscene to the Domain mural. I'll then finish with the third Descender and Isteroth speculation. This may be pointless to go over, but I think I should express my own thoughts of what a theory is. Because some might say a gap is a flaw, but to me a theory is like a jigsaw puzzle that is made up of the pieces you connect. Now you might have an idea of what that jigsaw puzzle is, but until you completely fill in those gaps, all you can do is imagine what that picture might be. After all, the purpose of a theory is to try to make sense of what is unknown based around what is known.
Don't tell me that your investigation came up empty-handed. That was to be expected, of course. The guilty can never produce proof of their innocence.
With that said, a gap to me is not a flaw. So for a theory to have a flaw, would be an inconsistency or misunderstanding of what is known.
In that case, I call upon the prosecution. Lady Farina, do you wish to refute his statement in any way?
Of course. I have armed myself to do far more than smash your alibi. Confidence cannot go unfounded, and my foundations are rock solid.
Let's start off with the Battle Pass cutscene, a story told to us by Venti, which, if taking at face value, is clearly meant to be an allegory for the twins, as there is a lot of symbolism that relates to the story of the twins. The first thing I should mention is that the revival of their homeland is the purpose of their journey, which is learned during the Chasm Archon quest.
Your Highness, so the proposal finally has your blessing.
In focusing single-mindedly on confronting the heavenly principles, we neglected our original mission, the revival of the homeland. I should not have been so indecisive.
This could be symbolic for the Genesis crystal. Next is the first heir, who was sent out first, which is meant to be seen as Lumine.
So that's the complete story, huh? Paimon thought that you ran into that unknown god first.
I see. So your first memory after coming to this world was being awoken by your sister from within that meteorite.
It seems your sister woke up first. But the question is, how long before you?
And then your sister told you that the destruction of Khaenri'ah plunged the whole world into chaos, and that you two should leave this world called Teyvat?
The destruction of Khaenri'ah? She said that?
That destruction you witnessed, that's history from 500 years ago. It seems the first time you awoke in this world was indeed during that period.
Huh. So your sister must have understood this world better than you did, because she woke up first.
And it was shortly after that you encountered an unknown god who blocked your path, so you couldn't escape.
Oh, Paimon knows this part really well.
This could be referring to her involvement with Khaenri'ah. That may be portrayed as also as the Kingdom of Darkness, while making her a queen of this kingdom, as she is referred to as royalty during Dainsleif's Archon quest.
First off, that Abyss Herald called your sister Princess. It seems like your sister is leading the Abyss Order. Even the Abyss Herald answers to her. Still, We don't know for sure if she's the highest-ranking leader in the organization.
Besides, that is the connection between the serpent and Kenrya. Due to the Black Serpent Knights and the Dark Statuettes, the serpent could be symbolic for the king. After that we learn of the second heir, where Venti then says, "This is the beginning of your journey, your story to be told." Now, despite allegories using symbolism to represent events of the past and present, I do believe there is a limit to how far the truth can be stretched.
Just a moment, please. I do hope you know how preposterous you sound at the moment.
Nevertheless, I believe that this is a reasonable request on the part of an attorney. Since the trial does indeed appear to be at an impasse, I believe that additional evidence may help us make more progress.
As the purpose of an allegory is usually to hide the truth behind symbols, these symbols might not directly associate with the intended character or place in mind. Sometimes the symbolism being the complete opposite. The aim of an allegory is to avoid being direct while still giving hints. So I ask you this, why would Venti tell us an allegorical tale of the siblings to the protagonist? To me that makes little sense. If this is our journey, what is the point of telling us such?
Could something so ridiculous actually be true?
Unless it was never a tale of the siblings to begin with. Instead, it is a story that intertwines with our own, right before he tells us.
But take heart. A second crowned heir has already taken up the path where the first had stumbled. This is the story of your journey, of your tale to be told.
Before that, Venti says, "Do not take heart, as a second heir took up the path where the first had fallen." Then there's a break. He then says, "This is your beginning." This could implicate the past events tying into our own story. If you're still with me, I will now be explaining my theories in depth, making use of in-game references. First, let's make note of the key points of the Battle Pass.
Order! Order! Allow me to re-establish the facts.
The Kingdom of the Heavens. The first heir. Genesis Pearl. The Kingdom of Darkness. Deceived to take up the role as a queen of the Kingdom of Darkness. The second heir following the first. Ironically, the allegory of a Kingdom of Darkness is similar to another tale, the story of the Pale Princess and 6 Pygmies. A land of night ruled by the Night Mother. The Moonlight Forest is under the rulership of the Pale Princess that would encounter a Light Prince. Later on, the two would become involved with 6 Pygmies. These beings would then devise a plan, leading to the couple's demise. This story then ends with a foretold prophecy from the Night Mother. Now the Pale Princess is more than likely an allegory of true events.
Well, your denial is very strident, I'll give you that. But what proof do you have to back your claims?
This is due to a more historical account found in the record of Julian. That follows 3 characters, a Seelie ancestor, a traveler from afar, and the Moon Sisters. Besides the characters is the punishment of the Seelies. This is further expanded upon, with the Goddess of Flowers, who is more than likely related to the Seelies, as she tells King Deshret a story that ties into the Pale Princess and record of Julian, thus making both depictions related to true events. But even more so, the Goddess of Flowers makes a note to insinuate that there was not just one invader, but multiple. She describes the powers of the invaders as dark. But if one of the invaders was the Light Prince, and came from the Abyss wielding dark powers, why is he called the Light Prince? Well, yes, it's an allegory, and this could be symbolic of his origins, being closely related to darkness or the Abyss. But why limit the story of the Pale Princess to the Battle Pass when this could be applied elsewhere?
Oh, is that so? How interesting! Let's hear your reasoning then.
Bits and pieces of that story of the couple are made known but never the same information? Why is that? Is it because the story is inconsistent, or because the story is being revealed to us piece by piece? Now let's track back to the Battle Pass cutscene with this in mind. Let's make note of the connections. A civilization beyond Teyvat that is depicted as beyond the heavens, which is symbolic of light. We have a Light Prince, an outlander, that came from beyond the firmament. There is a kingdom of darkness that may be connected to night, and this land of night has a night mother. This is what really seals the deal for my theory. As I mentioned before, the Night Mother takes on an antagonistic role in the Pale Princess. And even though she doesn't have any counterpart in the record of Julian, there is the punishment of the Seelies. And who is known to deal out punishments? The sustainer of heavenly principles. And just as a reminder, the goddess of flower might as well have shouted that there was not but one, but multiple invaders. So the queen of the kingdom of darkness, the Night Mother, the first heir, the second who came, the unknown god, the sustainer of heavenly principles. But you say, how could the first heir also be the sustainer? Well, that answer might be explained in the battle pass itself.
But she was deceived, and the memory of her noble origins faded. She now believed that she was the queen of the kingdom of darkness.
She is deceived of her noble origins, and made to believe she is the queen of the kingdom of darkness. This could also potentially be explained by Neuvillette's retelling of past events with the creation of the Gnosis. It was created to help the First maintain control over the world, after being severely wounded in the War of Vengeance. The First could no longer use their absolute authority to suppress the original order of this world. But this was fixed with the creation of the Gnosis, made possible with the help of the Second, using the remains of the Third Descender. This could also be explained to why there was originally an uncertainty to who won the war between the First and Second throne. Surely the war was over by then. So the ancestors thought they could return to the surface. But due to the ancestors of Enconomia being unable to return, it is believed that the First had won. Likely due to the Second taking up the role as the sustainer of heavenly principles.
To think you'd use such logic.
Also, since the story of Before Sun and Moon has accounts from history before the creation of man, I believe it is within reason to place Isteroth as the source of this information, shared with the ancient people of Enconomia. And so it is possible that some of this shared knowledge is behind the belief that the First had won due to their inability to return. So I wanted to do a more bulletin style of addressing each of my theories. But instead it came out as a jumble of them all together, in relation to each other.
Are these claims true?
Regardless, I still covered most of the overarching ones, excluding the domain mural. That really depends on everything else. So not much I can add to that besides this. Even if I did correctly decode the symbols of the domain mural, there's still the question of what it means as a whole. Especially when we involve the overall symbolism related to as above so below. Which, when stepping back and looking at the full picture, may be in connection to the order of this world.
Too long have we dwelt in the abyss. Surely they would rather return to the natural cycle of life and death as soon as possible than continue to exist as they are, without a shred of dignity.
So if my theory is correct, falls on the resurrection of the Third Descender, making the end goal ultimately lead to Venti, who would know the only way we can break this cycle as if we work with the previous Descender. Which was something he likely learned from Isteroth. Because if the battle pass is in fact the story of Descenders, not Lumine and Ether, and Venti is at most around 2700 years old, then this story could have only came from Isteroth, which again ties to my Isteroth speculation.
They have a point.
In regards to why she may be missing, which may have to do with her views on Celestia. We can also call back to Before Sun and Moon to highlight this further. If this is the case, we can also fill in the other reason Venti distrusts Celestia having something to do with Isteroth. But I'll leave it at that for now. Speaking of Descenders, in regards to the debunking using new information.
Excuse my interruption, dear opponents, but do you not see that the crowd is growing impatient? There is no greater sin in this opera house than an awkward delay in the performance.
Is that really necessary? They're already as good as guilty.
Let us continue the trial.
And this might be controversial. So I saved this for last because maybe it's just me, but is this not proof that this is a hypothesis, theory? I I only bring this up because I know it will be used and has been used to discredit my theory. Which must have been misused, simply to discredit me. Context matters, and coming from me that might be hypocritical. But that all depends on if you disagree with my use of in-game evidence. But I will add that even though it is likely a theory, I still think there is some truth to it, with its purpose being for outsiders to not be counted or treated as descenders. But I personally believe it is still too early to apply this to our twin because they are likely an anomaly. It is briefly touched on by Scaramouche, but one thing people failed to notice is his information did not come from Irminsul.
But unfortunately, there's no information about the Descenders in Irminsul.
Even if you can't find anything, that seems to confirm it. Irminsul does not keep records on the Descenders. Anyone who comes from beyond this world is not counted as part of Tevat.
The Jester told me this himself. You can take his word on this. He was a royal mage in Conria, and lived with your sister for a time. I don't know the details. It's up to you whether you want to believe me. All I can say is, I wouldn't lie to you about this. Did you get all that, Lesser Lord Kusanali?
Yes. Astonishing news.
Does this info count towards my mission? It wasn't from Irminsul, but was it valuable?
Very valuable.
Good. In that case, I'll take some time for myself now.
Instead, what he says came from the Jester, and uses that for leverage despite not finding anything about the sister in the Irminsul.
You look really upset. Well, since Irminsul was a dead end, I guess I can share some other info that might interest you.
Huh? About what?
The reason why there are records about your sister in Irminsul. It might have something to do with Conria. Apparently, Conria was her first destination when she arrived in this world. Plus, she only came to this world because the heavens responded to the summoning.
Now this is also proof there are still a lot of unknown variables, so let's move slowly ahead on what Descenders are exactly. Which I do not think we will learn until we reunite with our twin. If we do not hear it from a Descender themselves, let's not call it fact. We can trust Nahida, but anyone else is questionable. Or somehow there was a mistake made. As always, I guess at this point it's just a very late disclaimer, but I could be completely wrong about the battle pass and everything.
Order! Order, I say! Your request is reasonable, and we shall adjourn. This trial will reconvene in 1 hour.
This doubt is only due to me seemingly being the first and only one to prompt up this theory. And I am sure mine collides with other more accepted ones. If this video isn't too long, I might add how I connected the dots. If you're not interested, have a good rest of your day.
This case, at least, can be handed over to the Oratrice to make the final decision. Still, let us assume that these clues are indeed authentic.